Abraham, the patriarch of monotheism, Socrates, the founding father of Western philosophy. We normally place them worlds apart, one operating in the realm of divine revelation, the other in the realm of pure logic. But a radical hypothesis asks us to strip away the thousands of years of historical separation and examine the specific details of their lives. It suggests that history's greatest prophet and history's greatest philosopher may actually be the same historical identity. These terracotta idols are typical of the ancient world. To test this theory, we look at where both men began. They were both born into societies strictly bound by tradition and the worship of physical gods. Specifically, they were both born into the homes of craftsmen. History records that Socrates' father was a sculptor of Greek deities. The Quran records that Ibrahim's father, Azar, was a craftsman who made idols. They grew up watching men carve gods out of clay and stone. Watching a human chisel the final features into a piece of wood creates a profound intellectual tension. If a human hand shapes the object, that object requires a creator. It relies entirely on the craftsman to exist. Logically, it cannot be the absolute creator or master of the human mind. For a young observer in that workshop, the contradiction is inescapable. Recognizing this physical contradiction pushed both men to a much larger conclusion. If the physical statues were man-made constructs, then the religious and social systems built around them were also human inventions. They couldn't accept a belief simply because their ancestors practiced it. They broke from the dominant dogmas of their time, realizing that these inherited truths were comfortable illusions. This realization set their life's work in motion. We remember them today for the specific tools they built to navigate that realization, a shared method of relentless questioning designed to dismantle falsehoods from the inside out. In Islamic tradition, there is a concept called maqam Ibrahim, the station of Abraham. While often interpreted as a physical stone where he stood, the Arabic word maqam also describes an intellectual standing place. It is a methodology of inquiry, a way of processing information, asking questions, and demanding proof. Looking at this classical depiction of Socrates addressing the citizens of Athens, we see the same intellectual posture. Socrates called his method maieutic, or intellectual midwifery. He famously never wrote down a single word. Instead, he walked through the city streets, stopping citizens in the marketplace and asking them pointed questions. He avoided force-feeding his audience the truth, choosing instead to let them deliver the truth themselves through a series of logical steps. Ibrahim applied this exact conversational tactic. When his people found their idol smashed, they questioned him. Instead of a direct denial, he pointed to the largest, unbroken idol. He told them to ask the big idol who did it, forcing his accusers to admit their physical gods could not speak or act. Socrates deployed this same structure against the Greek pantheon. The Greeks believed in a hierarchy of gods, ruled by Zeus, who fought older deities for power. Socrates asked his opponents, if the king of gods can struggle, fight, and conquer other gods, then those defeated beings aren't absolute. And if the divine realm is full of conflict and constant change, it cannot represent an unchanging, absolute truth. Both men used their opponents' own belief systems against them. They used the internal logic of a polytheistic hierarchy to demonstrate its absurdity. It was a mirrored intellectual trap that forced entire societies to look closely at their own logic and watch it collapse.
This high-resolution view of the Milky Way represents the laboratory where both men refined their thinking. The Quran describes Abraham spending the night tracking a star, the moon, and the rising sun. Plato describes Socrates standing completely still from dusk until dawn, staring upward, lost in a deeply focused observation of the sky. These overnight vigils were a process of elimination. Abraham watched the celestial bodies rise and set, concluding that anything bound by physical movement and time is subject to a higher law. Socrates arrived at a similar deduction. The absolute truth cannot be something that sets, shifts, or fades away. It must be constant. Because neither master wrote their teachings down, they required a highly capable listener to preserve their work. On this chart, we see Abraham passing his legacy to his son Ismail. Ismail actively helped his father raise the foundations. On the right, Socrates connects to Plato, the devoted student who recorded the dialogues that built the foundation of Western thought. The structural map continues into the third generation. Below Ishmael, we find Ishak, who is described as a man of deep, categorized knowledge. Below Plato, we find Aristotle. He took the fluid, conversational philosophy of his predecessors and organized it into strict, formal scientific systems. Both lineages feature a defining confrontation with political power. Ibrahim silenced a tyrannical king by challenging him to alter the course of the sun, proving the limits of earthly authority. Socrates uses the sun as his symbol for truth in Plato's famous Republic, arguing that true kingship belongs to those who understand the highest truth, not just those with physical power. A philosophy relying entirely on spoken dialogue is fragile. The historical survival of both Ibrahim and Socrates depended on followers who preserved their work. What they passed down was a deeply replicable architecture of thought, kept alive by those who truly listened. This method of relentless questioning eventually triggered a harsh response. In Athens, the political elite brought formal charges against Socrates. He was accused of disrespecting the city's established gods and corrupting the minds of the youth. In Babylon, Ibrahim faced the same accusations, insulting the national deities and turning the younger generation against the traditions of their ancestors. By proving the old gods were powerless, these men threatened the entire economic and political power structure of their societies. A violent clash with the ruling elite was inevitable. Both societies determined this level of intellectual disruption could only be solved with a death sentence. The authorities in Babylon ordered Ibrahim to be thrown into a massive fire. The Athenian jury sentenced Socrates to drink a cup of poisonous hemlock. There is a detail in the Phaedo, the primary text detailing Socrates' death, that has raised questions for centuries. Plato, the man who preserved every detail of Socrates' life, admits he was ill and absent from the cell on the day of the execution. This admission creates a narrative gap. The only man who could verify the death admits he wasn't there to see it. This mirroring of Abraham's story is striking. The Quran records that when Abraham was thrown into the flames, he did not die, but was saved by divine intervention, walking away from the execution unharmed. Whether these records describe the same physical man or twin intellectual spirits separated by time, their shared narrative suggests the boundary between prophetic revelation and philosophy is thinner than we imagine. These two paths converge on a single vital point: the examined life is the true origin of both faith and reason.